What if F1 never banned refueling, the explosive element that F1 erased? There was a time when Formula One pit stops weren't just a blur of tyre changes. They were mini ticking time bombs waiting to go off. Picture this: a car pulls into the pit lane, still blazing hot from the track, and within seconds, a high-pressure fuel hose is jamming more than 12 litres of highly flammable liquid per second into the car, while 20 mechanics scramble around it. A second too early on the throttle? Fireball. A small fuel spillage? Pit lane inferno? A distracted mechanic? The entire team gets a gasoline shower. From 1982 until 2009, refueling was an essential part of Formula One strategy. It added a layer of unpredictability and a dangerous edge that made every pit stop feel like a dice roll. Then, in 2010, the FIA pulled the plug on refueling, citing safety concerns, high costs, and the need for better on-track racing. What if that never happened? What if refueling had never been banned? Or better yet, what if the FIA suddenly decided to bring it back? Would we get faster, more unpredictable racing? Or would we just be watching a disaster-filled YouTube compilation of pit lane explosions every Sunday? Let's take a deep dive into the parallel universe where F1 never stopped refueling and imagine what might happen if it returned today. The wild world of refueling. How it shaped F1. To understand how much refueling influenced F1, you need to understand how it changed the way teams raced. In the refueling era, starting fuel loads weren't just an afterthought, they were the race strategy. Teams had to make a crucial choice before the lights went out. Start light, qualify better, and pit early, but risk being undercut later. Start heavy, lose early track position, but gain an advantage later when others have to stop first. It meant that some drivers weren't even racing each other on track. They were racing the stopwatch, waiting for their rivals to pit. Michael Schumacher's dominance in the early 2000s wasn't just about raw speed. It was because Ferrari mastered refueling strategy better than anyone. They would often run Schumacher with lighter fuel loads for multiple short stints, letting him build up gaps and jump rivals in the pits rather than on track. This led to some crazy high-stakes strategy battles. Hungary 1998. Ferrari put Schumacher on a 3-stop refueling strategy, forcing him to drive 20 qualifying laps in a row to win. France 2004. Ferrari pulled off a 4-stop strategy, yes, 4, proving just how much refueling could completely flip a race on its head. Germany 2008. Nelson Piquet Jr. accidentally, or not, crashed, triggering a safety car and allowing him to refuel at the perfect time, giving Renault a completely unexpected victory. This era of racing was a war of strategies, where the team's ability to time pit stops was just as important as raw speed on track. But it wasn't all good. The downside: fireballs, predictability, and ruined racing. While refueling created exciting strategy battles, it also brought a long list of problems. First, pit lane fireballs were way too common. Ask Jos Verstappen what he thinks about refueling, and he'll probably shudder. The 1994 German Grand Prix saw his Benetton car erupt in flames during a pit stop after a fuel rig failure. The sight of his entire pit crew engulfed in a fireball is one of the most terrifying moments in F1 history. Then there was Felipe Massa's infamous Singapore 2008 disaster, and Ferrari's automatic pit release system failed, sending him out with the fuel hose still attached. Massa had to stop at the end of the pit lane, watching helplessly as his title hopes burned away. The refueling rigs were highly pressurized and unstable. A single miscalculation could turn a normal pit stop into a full-blown disaster. 2. Overtaking became a pit lane game. One of the biggest issues with refueling was that most overtakes didn't happen on track. They happened in the pits. Instead of seeing drivers fight for position, teams would just run different fuel loads and undercut their rivals in the pit stops. This meant that less skilled overtakers could win races just by having the right strategy. 3. It made races too predictable. Once teams figured out the optimal refueling strategy, most races followed the same pattern. Drivers were locked into predetermined pit stop windows, and there was very little room for surprise victories or crazy comebacks. The FIA hated this because it meant less wheel-to-wheel action and more race results being decided by engineers in the garage. What if refueling never left? How F1 would look today? Let's imagine an alternate reality where refueling never got banned in 2010. Would the past decade of Formula One look different? Absolutely. Sebastian Vettel's Red Bull dominance 2010 to 2013 might have been harder. Red Bull relied on perfect aerodynamics and tire strategy, but with refueling, teams like Ferrari and McLaren might have been able to challenge them more aggressively. Mercedes could have been even stronger. Their dominance from 2014 to 2021 relied on outright car performance, but with refueling, they could have pulled off more unpredictable race strategies. Max Verstappen might be even more unstoppable today. Give him shorter, lighter fuel stints where he can push flat out instead of tire saving. Forget about catching him. But the biggest change, tire strategies, would be far less important. Right now, F1 races are dictated by tire degradation. Teams build strategies around keeping the rubber alive. If refueling was still around, teams could just run aggressive, short stints, and forget about nursing tires. Would this be better? Maybe. But one thing is for sure, it would be a completely different style of racing. What if refueling came back in 2025? Now let's go full FIA fever dream. What if refueling was reintroduced for the 2025 season? 1. Ferrari would have a meltdown. If they can barely manage a tire change without screwing it up, imagine them trying to add highly pressurized fuel into the mix. We'd see at least 3 pit lane disasters per season. Second strategy, chaos would return. Mercedes would probably find a way to outthink everyone, while Red Bull would build a new undercut master plan that makes Verstappen untouchable. 3. Safety concerns would resurface. Unless fueling technology has drastically improved, the fireball risk would be a hard sell for the FIA. Would it be entertaining? Absolutely. Would it be safe? Not really. Should F1 bring back refueling? If you want chaotic, unpredictable races, refueling would definitely spice things up. But if you want more on-track action, then keeping refueling banned is the right move. There's no denying that refueling added a layer of drama and strategy that modern F1 is missing, but it also made racing more predictable, dangerous, and dependent on pit stops instead of wheel-to-wheel battles. So, what do you think? Would F1 be better if refueling returned, or are we better off without it? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Formula One. Dramas for more deep dives, controversial takes, and F1's biggest what-ifs.